into another episode of Colorado Conversations here on our free FOX31 Plus app. I am Talya Cunningham. It is officially the summer season, and that means all things outdoor music. Joining us in studio, we have a very special guest. Joining me, David Flomberg. You are the Director of Marketing and PR for City Park Jazz. Thank you so much for coming in this afternoon.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having us.
So let's talk about it. For people that don't know, maybe new to the area, talk about City Park Jazz, what it is.
Sure. City Park Jazz started in 1986. This is our 40th season. So that's a big landmark year for us. It is a series of 10 free to open to the public concerts in the summer that start in the first Sunday of June to the first or second Sunday in August, depending on the calendar that year. And we have only Colorado-based acts who perform from 6 to 8 p.m. This year we also launched a youth programming initiative. And so we'll have a number of like high school and middle school bands playing a half hour before the main act takes the stage. But you know, we have 24 food trucks. It is a very family-friendly, lively affair, and you know, our tagline is a celebration of community, because that's really the true emotional benefit of what we're delivering to the city. Yeah,
and I love that. It is really all about community, everybody getting together outdoors in the heat, listening to some great music. As we celebrate 40 years, I don't know how long you've been with City Jazz, maybe you could tell us, but what makes it so special? Yeah,
I started in 2012. I was recruited onto the board. It's an all-volunteer board. All of the board members are volunteer. All of the volunteers who help us every week volunteer. You know, we pay for like sanitation, sound, and things like that, security. Yeah, it has a deep resonance in this city, and we've seen it a few times. Most notably, the season after COVID shut us down, and then this season, in terms of how many people really cherish this institution. You know, we have the most diverse crowd of any similar type of music series you'll see in Colorado. It serves the greater City Park neighborhood, but we get people from literally all over the Front Range every week, anywhere from 8,000 to 12,000 depending on the week. So for one thing, and we also only book Colorado acts. Okay. So it's truly homegrown. The group who first started the City Park Jazz series did it to kind of reclaim City Park from less savory elements that had kind of overtaken the park. And they were like, how can we turn this thing around without really engaging in a battle with police and gangs and things like that? And, you know, jazz music appeals to everyone. So since then, with one exception, it has been an amazing, peaceful, and wonderful experience for everyone who comes. Yeah, and I think you said 1986, right? So Correct. This is 40 years. What a milestone. You mentioned the youth program. Can you talk about that and anything else special going on for 40 years? For sure. Yeah, the youth programming initiative, we recruited a new member onto the board, Dean Hirschfield, and this is fully his background, and he's a music educator, an amazing percussionist and drummer that I've been playing with on and off for many years myself, and super dedicated to this particular function, you know, super passionate. And we have had on and off over the years youth groups come in, but we haven't really operationalized it into something that is kind of consistent. This is making it consistent. The first week we had the Mapleton High School Jazz Messengers open the show. They set up on the plaza as opposed to the stage because they're, you know, trying to wrap up sound check while this gets going. And that group is led by Zach Brake, who is the tuba player for Guerrilla Fanfare, which is a great brass band in town. And Zach is just the sweetest guy too. So these kids were fantastic, far better than I was at that age. They put on a great 30-minute set, warm up, and we're going to be doing that a number of times throughout the summer. The other, I think, cool thing that we're doing is City Park was created, you know, over a century ago. And things like ADA accessibility weren't first and foremost in the mind of the people who built it back then. So we are limited by just the natural environment that we have to play in, and the parking lot that's closest to the pavilion in Farrell Lake, where the bandstand was and all of that stuff, is nowhere near big enough to accommodate the kind of crowds we get who need mobility, support, and access. So this season, we're trialing a shuttle that's going to pick up people at 4 stops at the far end of the road that leads up to the pavilion bandstands and the duck boats. And that's July 5th and our last show August 9th. So we got a Sprinter van designed for ADA accessibility, and it's just going to pick up folks at those outlying points and bring them right to the entrance of the park, or of the performance area of the park, running like every 10 minutes or so for those 2 shows. I've been after this one for a while because I think it's probably the main complaint we get is from folks who kind of are left out because the mobility of getting to where they want to be in that park is really tough if you have a challenge that you're fighting. So if this works out well, we're really excited because Panda Express is sponsoring the whole thing for us. Wow. They've underwritten all of the cost of that for these 2 shows. And assuming it goes well and it's popular, it's used, then hopefully next season we'll expand it to all 10.
Yeah, something tells me it will be used and it will be popular, so get ready for next year. That's incredible. It's just all inclusive, and you really make sure that everybody feels welcome and at least has a spot to be at.
Yeah.
And we'd love to hear that. So let's talk about the performance. You said it's homegrown, which we love. How do you pick the acts, or is there auditions at some point? I know that's too late now, but just going forward, how do you pick these homegrown acts?
Sure. So our board president is Andy Burkaw, also one of the other sweetest human beings you will ever meet. Andy and his partner own the Oriental and the Federal Theaters, which I think are the 2 last theater-sized venues that are not being run by AEG or Live Nation. Okay. And no slam against them, but having private ownership is a different animal. Andy has been doing the talent booking for City Park Jazz since I think 2013 or 14. He came in a year or 2 after I did. And he and I go back to the 90s. I've known this guy for a long time. But Andy what we do is we put on the website, on the front page, there's a submission form for acts, which asks for a lot of information and their socials and their video clips and, the kinds of different shows that they've played. And Andy can sift through those and he'll make the final decision. It's a very tough and thankless job because someone's always going to be upset that they didn't get picked. But for Andy, he understands our crowd, and that's so key of understanding that some of the best avant-garde out there jazz stuff is probably not going to be the best fit for this type of crowd of 10,000 people. You need stuff, with a vocalist usually, and we do stretch out, and once in a while we'll find opportunities to really get a little esoteric with the programming as we can. And we definitely strive for multiculturalism in terms of, jazz is such a big umbrella.
Yeah.
So we'll do things with mariachi and Afro-Brazilian and Afro-Cuban and, merengue and mambo and funk and jazz. And we've even had ska, on that stage.
Yeah.
Judge Roughneck's played there. So we get a little loose with the definition of jazz, but I think the thread and the element there is there's always improvisation, and for the most part it's all just incredible musicianship. I've been in the scene, and I've been a professional musician as well as a music journalist and a performer and a producer for many years, and I can say without a doubt that Denver's music scene is pound for pound as good as any other in this country. There's so many incredible acts, musicians out here. So it's not hard for us to pack the room, so to speak, with great talent because it's here. So we don't need to go out of state to get it.
And I bet it makes your guys' job that much harder to dwindle down those
totally.
acts. What can people, I know we're just getting started in this summer season, what can people expect when they come out this season?
Well, I'm so excited about this lineup. So this Sunday is the Spicy Pickles featuring Hannah Rodriguez, which is a very swing-oriented band who also produces original swing music, but in that style, in that vein. Next week is Hazel Miller, who is an institution, a legend in this city, and people come out real strong for Hazel. And we have some other great acts. I know we got the Delta Sonics, which is a great blues act coming in towards the end of the season. I don't remember them off the top of my head, but the one I'm probably most excited about is in 2013, we did a show with Ron Miles and the Denver Municipal Band. The Denver Municipal Band is the oldest municipal band in the country. And so their relationship with that band shell that we lost this spring, is very long and deep. Their relationship with City Park is very long and deep because that's where they played so much. Ron Miles led that show, and they did a note-for-note reenactment of Miles Davis's Sketches of Spain.
Wow.
And it was so good. And I was so impressed by it. And Ron, losing him was a blow to this music scene that is unmatched. Every musician I know counts Ron as kind of a musical father. Yeah. He was a guy who was an incredible mentor, teacher, and human being. He was like the standard for what it is to be a kind and good person, on top of an incredible composer and trumpeter. So he did that show, and we did a tribute to him a couple years ago when he passed away. And it was right after his release of Rainbow Signs. And I called my friend, Shane Ensley, who is another unbelievable trumpet player who grew up here. He and I were in the same class at East High School. And then he went on to an incredibly amazing professional career. And he and his family moved back to Colorado from New York just a few years back. So I called Shane and I said, there's no one I can imagine leading this tribute for Ron aside from you. And he did, and it was incredible. And Ron's album was Rainbow Sign, and there's a point in the show where Shane is playing, and right over the lake, as you're looking towards the stage, right behind him, double rainbow. And it was magic. Yeah. It was healing. It was cathartic for everyone who was grieving the loss of Ron. So this season, I talked to Shane again. I said, for our 40th, what if you did something along the lines of what Ron did with Sketches of Spain? And you and the Denver Municipal Band, and Shane has a long history there because his father was the conductor of the municipal band for decades before he passed. So yeah, that's what we've got going on, that show. And on top of that all, this year is the 100th birthday of both Miles Davis and John Coltrane.
Oh, wow. So you have a lot to work with.
There's so many storylines. I could go on and on. I'm sorry to monopolize.
It's okay. There's a lot to look forward to. It seems like a lot of preparation went into this, and our conversation is going to continue into this when we come back. Welcome back into Colorado Conversations on our free Fox 31 Plus app. Our conversation is continuing, talking all things summer music, specifically City Park Jazz. So, David, our conversation does continue with this major milestone marking 40 years with City Park Jazz. A major setback happened. Can you talk about that? We actually covered it here on the news. We've been getting the word out, but there was a fire in City Park at the bandstand, kind of ruining it. Talk about how that happened, how that kind of set you back a little, and then you've quickly recovered. Yeah,
it was devastating. We lost the band shell, which was 100 years old, basically, 99 or something like that. And in order for us to continue the season, that took some adjustment. We had to pivot quickly because by that point, we're just a couple months out from the start, and it's a big project. There's 10 shows, and over the course of a season, 100,000 people show up. So. We were very lucky in that a board member is also our sound engineer, Colin Bricker, who's been doing this with Mighty Fine Productions since 96 or maybe 97. And also, there's an old joke about sound guys always being really surly, and he is the opposite of that.
Okay, good.
And so he's just a great guy to work with, but he had all the connections. He knew exactly what needed to be done, more so than anyone else on the board. So we were able to source a mobile stage and figure out power needs. And when you look at the size of the stage we need is, we're not talking about, it's a full festival style stage. And they're bringing it in every Sunday, setting it up, tearing it down every Sunday, and then bringing it back the next. So, we were looking at a budget shortfall of maybe $45,000. that we had not planned for. And you know, everything is more expensive now. Our overall operating budgets have increased by about 30% since COVID. And there's a natural inflation over the years previous to that, but they have spiked since then. The upside is, and as you know, City Park Jazz is a 501c3 nonprofit. We are not part of the city. We are completely independent, and that's something that people just don't get quite often. They think the city puts this on. So while the city has been engaged in their efforts to rebuild that bandstand, which we found out that they are committed to having it by next season at this last show when Mayor Johnson announced that, much to our surprise, because replacing something like that within 2 years, knowing the bureaucracy is just of how cities work.
Wait, I don't want to cut you off, but you said much to your surprise. That was a surprise when Mayor Mike Johnston announced that to you?
Absolutely.
So what was going through your mind when he took the mic and said that?
I know on the board, we were like the people who were in the general vicinity. It was all like, like Jim on The Office, like direct to the camera in that moment. And we're like, did he just say that in front of everybody? And Kyle Clark, sorry to mention someone from a different station, was there. And so he was on the record. Like, you could not be more on the record with that. And that's huge. That commitment, I fully expected this to be a 2-year process. And who knows? They could get into it with the demolition, discover something that causes us to move back. That could still happen. But the optimism from that moment for us was just enormous. It was huge because, they're also going to be able to build it in a way that pays homage to the history while probably being a little more accessible for people who, need help getting on that stage because it was built so long ago. Yeah, so that's great.
And with the organization running on volunteers and giving your hard-earned time, and with this major setback, how were you able to keep going with that $45,000 budget deficit with the stage and taking it up, breaking it down, putting it back up? I think the community stepped up, right?
Absolutely, and it's a great question because the community showed up in spades, and they've continued to. We have made up our shortfall for this season. We got a great little boost from Dazzle, who was a great partner, and they put on a wonderful Dazzle Sunday brunch benefit for us. And between what we made off ticket sales and donations on the day, because they also offered like free, another free brunch experience for people to donate, and then random drawing. We ended up making about $10,000 just on that. And then we had donations coming in from every walk of life. I see them when they come in, and one of them I remember was a kid who was like, "I gave you my allowance this week. It's all I've got." It was like $3. And from that all the way to $1,000 here, $3,000 there. We've got some great corporate sponsors this season who've stepped up more so than we've seen in past seasons. So it was, I sent a note to the board. I said, if you've ever doubted what we do here and the meaning it provides to this community, you should definitely be able to put that to rest now, because it was beautiful. Non-political, everyone just showed up.
Yeah. I mean, that's a true test of what it is each and every year that you guys do and put on. And as they say, the show must go on. So we got to see the shows this summer. And we're going to talk about the logistics, what you need to know if you want to volunteer and donate after we take a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back into Colorado Conversations. Our conversation does continue with David Flomberg with City Park Jazz Marketing and PR Director. Thank you so much for being here. Our conversation continues about this summer season. A lot of excitement, a lot of bounce back from what was once a setback, but I think it's going to come out stronger on top, as we just talked about. So everybody that's excited for this season, let's talk about the logistics. That means, is this free? Do you need tickets to get there? Where can you donate? Let's talk about all that.
Sure. Absolutely free. Okay. No tickets. You just show up. We recommend people walk or ride their bike. We have a bike corral by Z-Bikes who volunteer to, you check in your bike, you get a ticket, and it's all put in one area, so that makes that easy. Public transportation, we're available. Like parking in the park is at a premium, so it's hard to come by. That being said, there is still parking. You just may have to hoof it a little bit to get to the stage. We have on the website. We definitely operate, like I said, fully on volunteers. In the operational stuff, every show during the intermission, we send them out. We send out a bucket brigade, and they're carrying around buckets for donations. Okay. So there's a place for everyone to drop in cash, and there's a digital button there so you can tap to pay too. So we always need volunteers for that. We also need volunteers to help us staff the merch tables, and volunteers to help with setup and teardown. So if you're interested in volunteering, go to cityparkjazz.org and then get involved in the menu, and then you'll see an option to volunteer there. And then there's a couple different sign-up opportunities available for folks there.
All right. So obviously you can go online, or you can contact you if you'd like to volunteer, donate. You can donate at the concert, or you can donate online.
Back at cityparkjazz.org too.
I'm going to give you the final thoughts, because it seems like this year is a milestone year, but it also was a teachable year for you guys to learn how much you mean to the community. And my final question to you, David, is what does this mean to you? I know you've been doing this on the board since 2012. What keeps you coming back? What makes it so special to you and for our Colorado community?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think, like I said, I went to East High School, and I say that because Dean, who I mentioned earlier, always gives me a ration for mentioning that I went to East High School, because apparently that's the Harvard of Denver high schools, or CrossFit, because people have to mention that when they do it. But it's a fantastic celebration of community, and it's right in the shadow of where I kind of grew up. I'm a musician, so I'm dedicated to seeing this thing through, and also we have a vision as a board to see it turn into a foundation. And that's a thing, what I see as kind of the legacy I'm hoping to leave Denver is that not only will we make City Park Jazz wholly and fully financially viable forever, but also position ourselves to be able to provide scholarships for youth pursuing, music degrees, specifically in a jazz and performance and related, and then also grants for musicians in the city who maybe you need 10 grand to finish an album, and you could apply for a grant and we can make that happen. So I learned a lot from just being on the board and the people I got to work with, watching the Levitt Pavilion model, which is based on a really significant endowment and does some of those same kinds of things in the way City Park Jazz does today, but I want to take it to that next level and really become a community cornerstone, a bedrock of live jazz and the jazz arts. Yeah, and you want to keep elevating as it goes on. Music's going to bring thousands of people together this summer, as it does each and every summer. So thank you so much, David, for coming in and talking about this summer season, what's in store. I know a lot of people are excited, and they're going to be packing into City Park. Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Talya. Absolutely. We'll see you back here again, hopefully. Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of Colorado Conversations here on our free Fox 31 Plus app. I'm Talya Cunningham. We will see you next time. Have a good one.